It's an absolute pleasure for me to get an opportunity to visit with my friend Walter Lewis, former University of Alabama quarterback, was a great, great player, terrific player with the Memphis Showboats in the old USFL, and then had a stint in Canada with the Montreal Alouettes, has been a coach, successful businessman, and had him on Tighter Insider TV with Rodney Orr and me a few months back, and had been wanting to get him on the radio show, and decided with the draft beginning tonight, it was time. Good morning, Walter. How you doing?
Hey, Gary. How are you?
Doing real well. As I said, pleasure to have you. And let's jump right in. I want to cover a number of topics, but the first that I want to cover is the draft tonight. Alabama hasn't had a first-round selection at quarterback since Richard Todd in 1976. That's going to change this evening. I'm not sure what pick Tua will go, but he's going to go in the first round. You've watched him play. You've seen his talent up close. How do you think his game's going to translate to the National Football League?
I think his game will translate very well. Tua has a lot of instincts that you cannot teach. He has the arm talent that you cannot just create. It's just there. And he has a mindset where he loves to compete. And those are elements on that level that you have to have. I've read some things about what some analysts have said relative to him, and the style of offense that they had him in at Alabama that contributed to his success. But that's not the case to me. To throw a football, that's a difficult task. To have a ball in your hand and then translate that over to a receiver. And it does not matter what system you're in, it's still difficult. So to get a ball to a player in space to where he can actually operate and do what that player does, Tua does that. He did it consistently with accuracy and all those things. Those things you can't teach that. A system can't develop that. It's just there. So I think, being as accurate as he is, and having the arm talent that he has, I think the translation from, the college sport to the professional sport and football, I think he'll make the transition just great.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love his arm talent. You, of course, were a tremendous athlete playing that position and known for being able to use your legs. Don't you think Tua maybe is a little underrated in that area? He's not Walter Lewis, or he's not Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts, but his athleticism, his ability to move, avoid the rush, run when he needs to. We know about his arm talent and his accuracy, but I think he's a little underrated as an athlete. Would you agree with that?
Well, my talent and Tua's talent a little bit different. I would defer to run because that's the gift that I have.
Sure.
I say people miss and run people over in certain cases or what have you, but to be able to avoid the rush, and then be thinking of what's going on downfield, that's an area that I may have been deficient in certain cases. But Tua is very instinctive from that standpoint, to where he can get out of the way in the pocket and then deliver a strike, and that's all he needs on that level, there, because he'll have hopefully the talent around him to where he can distribute the ball and make an impact that way. That's his gift. That's his abilities there, with him.
You went through this process. You chose the USFL over the NFL, but you know what it's like to get ready to play professional football and how they dissect everything. The injury situation with him, the two tight ropes in the ankles, had broken a finger, and of course, obviously, the hip. That seems to be a concern for a lot of teams. How big a concern should it be? Is it as big a deal as some people seem to make it out to be? The injury history with him. How do you gauge that, Walter?
Well, injuries are a part of the game there, and it's been unfortunate that Tua's had his share of those injuries. But one of the things that I've seen about Tua in terms of when he gets an injury, he's able to recover from those injuries fairly quickly, there. It's going to be on the team that selects him in terms of how they situate him with people around him to protect him, there. And then there is going to be on Tua as well in terms of how he adapts his game to, not taking some risks that he doesn't have to take and being able to get rid of that football when he needs to. Those are things you can learn. Those are things that you can teach. But that organization that takes him on they have to make a commitment as well,
right,
in terms of how they display or put him in positions to where he can be successful and protect him at that position.
Absolutely, and I just can't wait to see him get in the NFL and show off his talent. I want to ask you about Jalen as well. And, he's had a great career, an interesting career. You go from being the SEC Offensive Player of the Year as a true freshman to 2 years later being a backup, coming in and winning the SEC championship game his junior year at Alabama, transferring to Oklahoma, had an incredible year there, took the Sooners to the playoff, and put up huge numbers, has improved as a passer, and now his draft stock, Walter, quite frankly, it's on the rise. He's projected as a second rounder. How does Jalen's game translate?
Well, let me just say this. You just never know the route that you have to take sometime in order to achieve some of your goals. It was very unfortunate for Jalen to fall into the situation that he did with Tua coming in. But I listened to Tua's deal he had on AL.com, where they had him in church and stuff, his faith and his, just the background of why he chose Alabama. And I look at it relative to Jalen Hurts. Jalen came to Alabama to develop as a quarterback, to be able to go to the next level. The traditional route that you take, people don't understand, Jalen's route was a whole lot different because it was interrupted by Tua. But the faith of Tua and being able to be put in a position in Alabama to be successful and then pushing Jalen aside, it wasn't the traditional route to go through in order to get to where he is. Some things had to happen, there. His freshman year, things went well, but, the training that he needed in order to develop was not there. His second year, the same thing, the training that he needed to get there. And then his third year, with Tua at the helm, with the quarterback coach that went to Miami coming in to coach him, he started getting some of those developmental tools that he needed in order to be a successful quarterback. And, the blessing for Jalen to me, I know for me as a player, I'm a visual learner. When I can see somebody execute and do things that I cannot do well, it gives me a picture that I can see to where I can emulate it. He had a chance to sit behind Tua and just observe how to deliver the football, and just day in and day out. And those type things are priceless. And then with him transferring to Oklahoma, that was a part of the process for Jalen to be able to develop. And then going out there with Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley has the insight. He has he knows what to say in order to get it out of a player. And I'm just grateful that he had an opportunity to get into a system to where, he could develop even more and position himself. I'm excited for Jalen in terms of his opportunity that he's getting, because his traditional route to go, to develop, it didn't happen like people would draw it up on the board. It happened differently, but he's achieving what he's wanted to achieve.
Yeah, I love the way you analyze that as a former quarterback. And the part that struck me, and I'm going to get you to reiterate what you meant, is he didn't take the traditional route, and it sounded to me like listening to you that he benefited, and give him credit for doing it. He benefited from that year in 2018 behind Tua, watching Tua throw. Of course, he got to play quite a bit as well. You really believe that benefited Jalen in the long run?
Oh, it benefited him in a lot of different ways. You can take adversity you can take adversity in two different ways. You can let it suppress you, or you can develop from it. You can grow from the adversity. And Jalen took the latter position. He grew from it, and hey, he's in position now. From that growth, he was able to grow into where he is now, having an opportunity, to do something on the next level. With him on the next level, I'm hoping that he will get with a team to where he can get coached by someone who can continue that development. They can see the talent there and be able to want to impact him that way to where they'll help him develop and becoming the quarterback that he's capable of becoming.
Walter, this pandemic is affecting life in so many different ways, and not just sports, but clearly it's affected all of our sports. And spring football at Alabama wiped out. we don't know what's going to happen going forward. Bryce Young, highly touted freshman quarterback from California, is coming in. Mac Jones, who played well after Tua got hurt last year. You've also got Talia Tagovailoa. You've got Paul Tyson, all scholarship quarterbacks. You know how important the spring is, not just for quarterbacks, but for the entire football team. How much development are these quarterbacks missing out on not being able to go through spring ball, not being able to be on campus, not being able to get ready for the season in the traditional way? How is that going to impact them, in your opinion?
Well, we talk about adversity with Jalen Hurts, the adversity that Tua had in terms of his injuries and what have you. This is adversity, and how well those quarterbacks are able to adapt to the adversity that you don't get that benefit of being able to practice in the spring and get better. It's going to be mentally how they deal with this adversity in terms of how they use this as a development time to compete, there. One of the analogy that I give, that piece of turf that's underneath the center, that's a quarterback spot. And how you take this adversity to be able to want that position and train to get there under these conditions there, it's affecting you, but how do you use it to your advantage to compete, to be able to win that piece of turf that's underneath the center? That's what's at stake right now, relative to the quarterback situation at Alabama.
Indeed. This is a tough question, but I want to ask you just your opinion. What's your gut feeling on college football this fall? Do you think we're going to have it?
It's too early to tell. I just don't know. This pandemic thing is a life or death type situation, and it's affecting a lot of people across the world. What's being challenged right now in terms of adversity is the hunger of people in terms of what's really, really important. And it's how much pressure is put on the communities relative to sports. How important is it relative to health? And that's the decision that our leaders are going to have to make as it relates to, what's important here, what makes this world work. It's been challenging to not be able to listen to new stuff every day on the radio relative to sports, not being able to see it on television. It's what's important. This is what the challenge is right now. There. I can't answer that question. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of decisions that time will help leaders make. In terms of what to do for the fall. It's going to be very interesting to see how things play out relative to this pandemic.
Walter Lewis with us, former great quarterback at the University of Alabama, was with Reggie White on those great teams with the Memphis Showboats in the USFL, then played with the Montreal Alouettes in Canada. Let's go back to your career, because coming out of T.R. Miller and Bruton, you had a lot of options, man. You were a highly recruited player. Almost didn't go to Alabama, but you wound up coming to Tuscaloosa. It worked out real well. You were the first African-American to be the starting quarterback for Coach Bryant and the Crimson Tide. Relive that process a little bit, how close you came to going somewhere else, and in the end, what won you over to play for Coach Bryant and the Crimson Tide? Well,
one of the things that I committed to do coming out of my junior year was I had no clue as it relates to where I needed to go. So I just started praying about it. And over a course of a year, because it wasn't just me involved. It was one of my best friends who was being recruited because of me to a certain degree to go to a certain school, and his life was being affected by my decision. And when it came down to it later on, I made a visit to Alabama. I just had a real peace about going there. It didn't matter to me that they had already committed 5 other quarterbacks. Talk about quarterback class. We had 5 come in prior to me, so it was 6, including me. But I went totally against the grain because I just had a peace about the atmosphere at Alabama, what was going on there. Didn't factor in that I would be the first black quarterback there. That wasn't even in the equation. It was just I had a real sense of, hey, this is where I needed to be. And I made my decision. My best friend, his in terms of where he went to school was challenged or changed. But that prayer, the prayer that I had in going into that decision, my situation was taken care of, and his was as well. He actually went to a smaller school and became a Hall of Famer there at that school. And then he actually played. His professional career was longer than mine professionally, there. So everything worked itself out relative to that. But that process for me was nerve-wracking at some point. But, hey, I am grateful, and I'm happy that I made the decision to go to the University of Alabama. That decision is affecting me. It affected me then, but it's also affecting me today in a positive way. And it's great to be in a position like today to be able to talk about a great quarterback or two great quarterbacks, at the alma mater that I went to, that are having a chance to experience some of the things that I had a chance to experience.
You were the first quarterback, and not that Alabama didn't throw the football in the wishbone, but really in 1982, it started some in 81, but in 82, you threw the football quite a bit. Of course, we'll get to Ray Perkins in a moment in 83, but you and Coach Bryant and Mal Moore, I know you broke up the bone a lot. I don't know if people realize is that you threw for over 1,500 yards your junior season out of the wishbone and for 9 touchdowns. Of course, you ran it a lot too, but I think that's pretty impressive for a wishbone quarterback, and everybody looks at 83 when you went to the eye and Coach Perkins came in, but you threw the ball a lot in 1982.
Well, I look back, and Mal Moore did a great job in terms of breaking the bone and having flex where you put Jesse and Joey close in. And I'm going to tell you, it was easier throwing out of the wishbone because, hey, you put pressure on the defense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they didn't know if you were going to run or if you were going to throw it. So what were they going to do? Or were they going to come up and take the pitch? Were they going to stay back and try to run with Joey, who ran a 4.240, or run with Jesse, who could run just as fast? I mean, it was really, really innovative in terms of what Coach Bryant and Coach Moore, in terms of how they utilized my abilities there. I wish I had more time, to get really, really into it. But they had a great scheme relative to being able to utilize the talents that I was blessed with at that time. Gary, I was thinking, we had I was there for the LSU game, this past year's honorary captain. It's been 40 years. It's been 40
Time
years.
Time flies, absolutely.
It's crazy.
It is nuts. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Walter.
No. It's just crazy how time flies relative to that opportunity. And it was fun actually being different because the abilities that I had 40 years ago, you see it day by day or daily here now in terms of the type quarterback that they're looking for, the one that can run and the one that can throw. And, it's just great to see how that has evolved over time.
Oh, yeah, you still you could strap it on and play. You've stayed in incredible shape. All right, you made history as the first African-American starting quarterback for Coach Bryant at Alabama, and you also were part of the first senior class to play for Ray Perkins. That transition from Coach Bryant to Ray Perkins and changing the offense, and you had a terrific year in 1983. But what was that like going through when you signed with Coach Bryant? I feel like you still probably felt like that's who you would finish your career under, and then Ray Perkins comes in and does everything a lot different. What was that transition like for a player?
Well, as I mentioned to you earlier, back in the fall, when what have you, it was difficult for me because my junior year things were beginning to click with the wishbone, and then my senior year, I'm like, we got this in terms of being able to just go out and fluently just play the game, running and passing. And I'm going to be quite honest with you. When Ray came in there, I was resistant of the change, there. And I remember one summer going into his office, and Ray was a very good coach. I really enjoyed playing under him after I understood what he was doing. But he sat me down. He said, Walter, he said, look, you ran the wishbone, right? You ran the triple option. I'm like, yes, I did. He said, let me show you something. So Ray actually, great salesperson, he said, look, I'm going to show you how we're going to run the triple option throwing the football. And he put it in diagramming it on paper. I'm like, hey, this is different. He said, this is how we're going to run the triple option, throwing the football. And when he showed me what we could do offensively and put the numbers out there, it really sold me, and my mind changed. And hey, it was a great transition after that. I mean, Ray knew how to put players in position on offense to be successful, and that was something that he had a gift in. And my time in terms of that made my transition there much more smoother, going into that season our senior year. I was able to sell players on just buying in and so on and so forth. So that was my experience with that time, in 1983 when the transition, where I wish I had another year on the Rays. My career may have been a little bit different if I would have had another year just to kind of get acclimated to all of the things that he was bringing to the table offensively during that time.
We're running out of time, and I knew this was going to happen. You told me last night at text, we'll not have enough time to cover all these topics. But just a real quick note that people might not remember. I bet you know this. You punted 4 times, and you had over a 40-yard career average as a punter. Do you remember that?
I do.
So you could have probably been a full-time punter. Real quick thought on the USFL, because you could have probably pursued the National Football League, but you signed with the USFL, played for Pepper Rogers in Memphis. Reggie White was on those teams. I remember watching those games. Y'all had great crowds. That seemed like that was a fun experience, just watching you play. Did you enjoy it?
That was a great experience playing in the USFL. Reggie White actually recruited me to Memphis to come and play with him. I got to know him very well while I was there. Hindsight, I wish I probably had waited until the NFL draft. I really felt like what's his name, the head coach of the Washington Redskins, Joe Gibbs.
Joe Gibbs, yep.
Joe Gibbs was very interested in me coming there to back up Joe Theismann, and his system and his personality lent itself to the black quarterback back in the early '80s. And I wish I had stayed there, because he probably would have drafted him in the 3rd round, very similar to what Jalen Hurts is experiencing right now, 2nd or 3rd round. But it would have given me invaluable time just to watch a Joe Theismann play and understand the game. Because, like I said earlier, I'm a visual learner, and I can emulate what I see, and I can learn from what I see. And I wish back then I probably would have just waited for the league to open. I actually got drafted by the New England Patriots, and in '87 I went there for a year. Then the next year I went back there and played actually scrimmaged against Joe Gibbs with the Redskins. So and beat Mark Ripien in practice.
I'll be.
So I had a great experience there, and it's unfortunate that that part of my career was not able to continue.
All right, Walter, we're just right out of time, but I want to ask you this final question, because I've never asked you this one. You could have built a successful coaching career. You were on track for that. Why did you get out of the coaching game?
I think about that today. I wish, coaching in terms of the demands of coaching,
right?
And then my maturity as a young man during that time, I did not see it all. I wish I could have seen it all relative to making that decision before I got out. I would say I got out by making an immature decision there. Relative to that, I ponder over that from time to time today. I really enjoyed coaching. Gave a great platform in terms of being able to impact people in a positive way, young men. And I get calls from guys that I coached at Alabama as well as at Kentucky when I went there. And I kick myself sometimes for not staying in there. I learned a lot. Got a chance to meet a lot of great friends, but it was an immature decision, in my opinion, back then in getting out, there.
Well, Walter, appreciate the great honesty, man. This has been pleasurable, and we'll have to do this again sometime. Thank you so much.
Gary, thank you, and I appreciate it, and I will look forward to getting with you sometime in the future.